11th. That brings us to item number 2, the interpretation. So reminding the board that the standard for us to determine whether or not we agree with the zoning administrator's decision and interpretation of the code that the accessory apartment or the apartment with a storage facility is not incidental and customarily part of that. So does anybody have any comments about that?
This is a tough one. I mean, I'm torn. I'm not really against it per se.
See, but that's not the standard.
I know.
Okay, because it's not a variance request. It's an interpretation about whether it meets the definition of the use. And I think that there's quite clear that there are a lot of self-storage places, and they were only able to come up with a couple examples of ones that have accessory apartments. So I think I don't think that they've met the applicants met their burden to overcome the zoning administrator's interpretation. Anybody?
If excuse me, my allergies are acting up again. If we choose not to accept this time, can they come back, or is it the same as a variance where they have to wait 6 months or whatever?
No. So let's say we agree with. Let's say we disagree with the zoning administrator, then it would be that it's a customary use and they could use it, and so could any other self-storage place in that zone.
So from then on, everyone could do it if they
Yeah,
wanted.
because we would find that it was customarily and incidental and part and accepted under the code.
Mm-hmm.
If we disagree, the applicant has the right to appeal, whether it's a use variance or an area variance is a question. If it's a use variance, they're likely not to be successful. If it's an area variance, I think they've made, an effort to show that the benefit to them. I mean, if it was an area variance, probably they would be successful.
They could also go to the town board and seek a change in the zoning, right?
Yeah.
To argue that it should be something that the zoning allows. That's another option.
Right.
But they could come to the zoning board and request an area variance.
Well,
I don't know whether it's going to be an area or a use variance. Lisa thinks it's a use variance. In that case, the standard there is very, very high. They have to show that there's no other economic use for the property, which quite clearly they'd be hard to show that when they have an operating self-storage facility. So I think Lisa's correct. It would not be successful under ordinary conditions, granting a use variance.
there's a reason we don't see many use variance applications.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to, do the research to confirm that the use is also for accessory uses and not just the principal permitted use. I think the last time I looked at it, that was the outcome, but I'm not 100%. So we would do the research to see whether it was a use variance or an area variance. I think the question Art was actually asking though was, if you deny a variance request, there's that prohibition in the code which says that they can't come back for 18 months in 210-148, but that's limited to variance requests. So there's nothing that would really arguably preclude the applicant if they wanted to make a different showing of coming back doing that, so.
Thanks.
Phyllis, you have any comment?
No.
Larry? Tony?
I think similar to what Art was saying, I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I don't necessarily see it as a necessity or a customary function of the storage facility.
Okay. So that's what our standard would be, is whether it meets that definition. Not whether it's a good idea, not whether we would grant it if it was a variance request, but whether or not the zoning administrator was correct in determining that it was not allowed. Tony, yes?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Is it? So anybody have any other? Okay. All right, then I'll make this motion. I move that the board accepts The zoning administrator's definition, find that the applicant failed to overcome or provide enough information to find that that it was incidental and a customary use within the zone.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then that motion carries. Item 3 has been adjourned. That brings us to item number 4, the special use permit for an accessory apartment. There is a staff report. Anybody have any concerns about this one? All right, Christine, do you mind making this motion?
Sure.
You want to do seeker?
Special use.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's unlisted action.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
okay.
listed action.
So I move that the ZBA determine that there are no other involved agencies and declare itself to be the lead agency for this action.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And then I move that the ZBA determine the action would not have a significant adverse impact on the environment and issue a negative declaration.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that motion carries. And then, now Christine, do you want to make the motion?
I move to approve the request for a special use permit set forth in item number 4. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony gathered during the public hearing, results of site visits by board members, and the staff report, and that it meets the criteria set forth in the town code. So
Second.
moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And that motion carries. That brings us to item number 5, 27 Southgate Drive. This is an area variance for a deck, which is actually a little bit smaller than the existing deck. Doesn't encroach any further onto the side lot line than the existing property. Anybody have any concerns with this one? No? All right. Then let me offer these findings. Whether an undesirable change will be reducing the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. The deck that's being replaced has existed there for quite some time and should have no impact on that character of the neighborhood. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible to pursue other than an area variance based upon the size of the lot and the position of the house, there's no other way to accomplish this without an area variance. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, mathematically so, but in fact, this is a reduction in size, and so therefore should not be considered substantial. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. There's no evidence that there'll be any environmental or physical impact. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, it certainly was, but that's not a reason to deny this application, and I offer those findings. Art, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the board approve the request for an area variance set forth in item 5. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, and results of site visits by board members. In approving this variance, the board adopts its findings as set forth by the chair.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then that motion carries. Next is item 6. Tony, you want to take that?
Did you have findings or?
There is a staff report on 6.
No, that's the county recommendation, which was, again, it was a matter of local concern. Staff report, it looks like this.
It is an unlisted action.
It is an unlisted action, so we do have to
Do seeker.
seeker
Okay.
first.
All right. This one.
So I move that the zoning board determine that there is no other involved agencies and declare itself the lead agency for this action.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One recusal?
One recusal. I move that the zoning board determine that this action would not have a significant adverse impact on the environment and issue a negative declaration.
Second.
Art second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
One recusal?
And one recusal. Okay,
Just
so,
sign that.
Yeah, but I'll do that after, because I have
so we've adjourned to October 2 and 3, so we're talking about the monument sign and the way finding sign, and the building signs.
just one of the building signs, actually. It's the one that's facing the rear of the building, remember? So, because the other ones are actually facing the Raymond Avenue, they're facing a public road, so those are okay. It's just the one in the rear that's facing the parking lot, which is kind of a unique circumstance, right?
So it's 1, 4, and 5.
1, 4, and 5, correct.
Now the standard one. So I can just reference the staff report.
What's that?
I can just reference the
The
staff.
staff report, yeah, the staff report basically was favorable, so you can use the findings in the staff report. But I guess it depends if there's any questions about 1, 4, or 5. for you.
Did anybody have any concerns with this? Okay. Phyllis?
Yeah, and I can just lump them all together, correct?
Yes, 1, 4, and 5, yeah.
I move that the board approve the request for an area variance set forth in item number 6. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, and the results of site visits by board members. In approving this variance, the board adopts findings as set forth in the staff report. So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Do we need to specify that it's for 1, 4, and 5?
Did I not do?
I didn't.
You didn't say that, but I
didn't say-
think that's
but it
what we
was-
were saying
okay,
I'm
before,
sorry,
so
I apologize.
I think we're okay, yeah.
Okay.
No, so second by Art, so.
Mhm.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, all right, it's
Aye.
irrelevant. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion is carried.
With one recusal.
One refusal.
All right, that brings us to other business. There's a lead agency request from the planning board, Habitat for Humanity subdivision. You want to describe what that's about?
It's a creation of a 5-lot on a small cul-de-sac behind Sunset. Yeah, they've just made their first appearance before the planning board. It may or may not need variances, we don't know yet.
This is Habitat for Humanity?
It is Habitat for Humanity, yeah.
That's private housing then, correct?
It would be private housing, it would be owned by the folks who, help, work with Habitat to help build the home.
Mhm.
And they have to, I forget how many years it is, but it's like at least 30 or something like that.
So they have to maintain it, and it's
Yeah,
not gonna be
yeah.
like a rental, like a college rental or anything
No,
like that?
no,
or
they have to
worry about it?
live in the house.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, then I move that we agree that the planning board should be lead agency for the Habitat for Humanity subdivision.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that motion carries. And there's a lead agency request from the planning board for the lands of Albano subdivision, 40 Peach Road.
It's a 3-lot subdivision. It's a very large property, and all of the 3 parcels would be pretty large lots as well. It's up, and then Peach Road is at like the northern edge. It's the border with Hyde Park. It's literally like across the street is the town, Hyde Park. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
No problems? Okay, then I move that we accept the planning board's request to be lead agency on lands of Albino subdivision.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then that motion carries, and I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And that motion carries. Good night.